Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast with myself and the amazing Angie Setzer.
Woohoo!
As Angie will be bringing a rapid roundup of the latest prices, flows, and moving news that affects grain markets and just markets in general because she's that awesome. Before she comes with her awesomeness, let me get the legals out of the way because when we don't do this, we always get a bit nervous because I tend to say stuff that gets me into trouble. So, as usual, nothing discussed on this basis session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, traders PIQ or PIQ Suite, or indeed the hosts, which, as you know, is that firstly the hostess with the mostess, Angie Septa, and myself, Ryan Paisley. How are you,
Woohoo!
my darling? Happy
I
Tuesday.
yeah, happy whatever day it is. You're like whatever time it is. I'm like whatever time. Let's start with what day is it? Because it feels
Fact.
very Monday-y.
Oh, it does. Well, for you, it is. You
Yeah,
you Americans and your made-up holidays.
that's just it. I'm like, I am absolutely surprised the CME still allows this. Like, we couldn't even have a day off for the day of mourning, you know what I mean? But we're still taking President's Day, which I'm not going to complain. It was a nice, quiet sort of day, though. Yeah, boring if you are one like me who doesn't know what to do with yourself when you're out of routine. So, anyway, happy Tuesday that feels like a Monday. Market wise here, not, there were a ton of developments over the weekend, right? But nothing that I would say put a finger on it and say it has a huge impact on trade
Right.
necessarily this week as we move ahead. We're looking at different trade policies. I'd say one of the things that we saw at the end of the week last week on Friday was a huge move higher in wheat. And so a lot of folks are like, what the heck happened? And you could say a part of that was winter kill and winter kill concern. We have some worries that we will see super cold temperatures work their way as far south as Texas here, really kind of create some pretty major problems. You can run into issues in wheat, once you get below 27, 25 degrees, way far south. Like right now for us up here in Michigan and areas north of anywhere that hasn't been out of freezing for weeks upon a time, that's not a concern. But it's one of those things that we're watching really closely. It's more of
Yeah.
an issue potentially across the Black Sea and some of those other places. But one of the things that I would throw out instead of just focusing on winter kill and potentially some drier and warmer conditions in India is the meeting that we had between President Trump and India's Prime Minister, and the potential that we could see there with a bilateral trade deal, and what that could mean, not only for agricultural imports, which were cited in the agreement that was released
Yeah.
post meeting. That was one of the things that they had mentioned, was agricultural imports, larger defense spending, and you basically have seen India's finance minister say that they are going to continue to actively work on ways to improve India's, economic or their business, potentially for the US and some of these other things. And so I think that's huge in and of itself, not only because India has seen a huge surge in ethanol demand and production, and as a result, will likely need to see a big increase in corn imports in the years ahead. They're going to go from what was a net exporter to what will become likely a net importer. And not to mention, we've got some weather issues and some concerns that could lead to them coming to the US for some wheat business eventually. At least that was kind of what helped to support the market in and above the winter kill concerns and thoughts that we have less supply available out of Russia and some of these other things. Um, in addition, part two on what we're looking at, I think, or what we're talking about when it comes to trade updates, is we are watching what's going to happen with the European Union, with Europe, and some of these others. There was an article that was released by the Financial Times last week on Thursday. I think it was, or maybe it was the 16th. It might have been Sunday. I don't know. The days blur together. I think it was the 16th. I think it was Sunday, actually, not Thursday. But it was released,
What year is this? Who is the president?
right? I have no idea. I just awoken from a dream. I have no idea what's going on. Um, but it was released here over the weekend talking about more of a reciprocal style in trade with the EU, and that created some worries. There were some traders on Twitter that were talking about the European Union increase in imports lately, and how this could be really, really bad for the US and some of these other things. I'd like to point out that this article in particular, if you really kind of dug into it and read into it, is more of a conversation about reciprocal type, or not even reciprocal, basically limiting the import of soybeans. Like if they can't produce the beans in a production practice in a European country, then they can't import beans that are produced with a similar or with a different production practice or with that production practice elsewhere.
Right.
So if that makes sense to kind of just simplify it, like basically if they don't allow you to use a chemical in the European Union or in Europe, you're not allowed to, buy beans that are able to use a chemical like that in the US.
Right.
It'll be on top of the deforestation regulations and all of these other things that we're seeing, and really could kind of hamstring the European crusher even more than what they've already been hamstrung. Some folks, like I said, want to say that this is in response to Trump. I don't know. I think it is partly, but I don't know if it's necessarily a one for one. I'm going to cough, so I'm going to mute myself really quick. So
Mine
that's
only
just
joke.
another thing that we're watching. When it comes down to it, we did have Trump threaten automobile tariffs late in the day on Friday and some of these other things. And so I feel like I'm all over the place, but really, we're just trade, and all of the different ways that it could be impacted. And one of the biggest things that I want to say is that the administration's biggest push so far has been to increase agricultural and energy trade with more in the way of defense spending. So there seems to be a focus that we can pay attention to that I think matters. Lastly, last thing, if you want to call it that, probably not, because I have like 7 other things we could talk about, but we won't because this is 10 minutes long. I do think one of the things that we saw or some of the positive things that we're seeing out of China need to be highlighted. I think a lot of folks have kind of caught up with the China news, when it came to the economic collapse or the impending economic collapse, like late in the cycle. And so they may not recognize that, you've actually kind of missed 2 years worth of headlines that a lot of other folks have been watching. And we are working into what appears a new approach, at least by Xi to a certain extent. One of the things that caught me this weekend, and a lot of traders have talked about it, or a lot of experts, analysts, whatever you want to call them, is Xi welcoming the world's or the country's biggest leaders in private industry. The biggest one to me that caught me by surprise, and I had to go back and be like, wait a minute, I thought he was in hiding, was Alibaba's leader, Jack Ma,
Yeah,
right?
Jack
Because
Ma.
he
Welcome
was,
back.
yeah,
In from
like
the
he's
cold.
not even like he was in the dog. Like you think I was in the doghouse for saying it was beautiful last week when Ryan was quiet. Like
Whoa,
Jack
whoa, whoa.
Ma.
Whoa. Now it's beautiful. Before you said it was nice. Now you're saying it was beautiful
It
when I
just
can
keeps
talk.
getting worse. I need to shut up. But
Oh my
anyway,
God.
you've got Alibaba's leader coming back, and he's not only just coming back, he is like the prodigal son or whatever. You know what I mean? Like he is the one that everyone's pointing to like as a great leader, and all of these other things that you're seeing. So I think it's important to kind of recognize that China has got like I'm gonna I don't even want to call it that because I don't want to give too much credit where it may not be due. But it's almost like the Trump effect, where it's like, okay, well, we need to be more capitalistic. We need to reduce, these, and that's one of the things that he said is they're going to reduce any sort of fine, any sort of fee that private businesses face that basically makes the playing field unlevel. Like you've really, really seen Xi want to approach this in a different way, and with AI, with DeepSeek, with their ability to kind of do these things. I do feel like you're going to see China work its way into the upswing. And one of the things that we really need to pay attention to right now is Putin and Trump and like our odd man out, Mr. Xi over there, who's like, wait a minute, what the hell? I want to be part of the Ukraine peace talks. I want to be doing that. Like, this is all stuff that I've been doing for the last 3 years that everyone's ignored.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be interesting too, just simply because if you do see Trump, kind of cozy up more with Putin and Xi, that is a massive, kind of, talking down to the EU, you know what I mean? That's a massive shift in US foreign policy. And I don't even know where to start with that. Like, it's just crazy to think about. Lastly, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, because all this talking about like tariffs and stuff, how, veterans of tariffs, we've been here before and like, we just, it's been like, welcome to the party for those newer people that just kind of working out how frustrating it could be. That's why I posted up our good friend Tom, who our regular listener, he posted a couple of days ago. He's got a mug that just says Tariff War Veteran.
I need that. Brilliant. I need one of those. Yeah, that's what I have a t-shirt still that says I survived the USDA shutdown from like 2014, I think, when we didn't have an October report that year. It was rough. But yeah.
Tell me it says, and all I got is this lousy t-shirt.
Pretty much. That's what it was. I don't know. I might be the only one that still has it left, but a friend of mine put them together and sent them out. So that's what I did. I survived the USDA shutdown twice, awesome. Actually. But yeah, so when it comes down to it, like there are a lot of things that are happening there. Trade war veteran, right? Like where we've almost gotten to where there's almost headline fatigue already. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff to watch and pay attention to, but I think we have to be really, really careful to not assume that reciprocity means targeting food or
Yeah,
whatever. Like there are just a lot of things we have to pay attention to. Lastly, weather, South American weather does look like it'll stabilize. We've seen safrina planting and soybean harvest get caught up to where they're within shouting distance of the 5-year average. I think for the most part there, you're probably going to see the bulk of that story behind us here for another 6 to 8 weeks or so until we get closer to like pollination and have a better idea of what Brazil's April weather will look like. Argentina's production looks like it'll stabilize. It looks, consensus seems to be below the current USDA estimate, but not by
yeah,
far. And really, when it comes down to it, we're just going to need to learn more about what Ukraine, what Brazil's quality looks like as it comes out. There's a lot of talk that these beans are coming out of the field super wet. There's some videos making their way around Twitter of like them trying to run the auger and they just come out in big chunks.
yeah.
And so that's not great, but that tends to be more localized and have a big impact on basis and things. And yeah, we're watching Ukraine, Russia. Everyone's kind of acting like peace is coming tomorrow. That meeting in Saudi Arabia this morning was just a first step of many. Like I think
This is
that's
it.
one of those things. Like we're
Yeah,
not there.
no,
Uh,
exactly that. It's very, very funny enough. It's very much on point this and on topic. It really reminds me of Trump first term with the agricultural trade deals and stuff, where it's
yes.
like
Yeah.
90% done. 90%. It was 90% done for three of the
Yeah.
four years he was in
The
office,
peace
and
deal.
it was still never finished.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is with the peace deal, like I think the one thing that you're seeing from the US is the thing that no one else had really done with earnest over the last few years, which is like sit down and be like, what is it that you want?
Yeah.
Or whatever anyone from the notebook would get that. But what is it that you want? What do you want? But when it comes down to it though, Russia to a certain extent knows that part of the peace deal that's going to be achieved will likely be a freezing of the front line once we're there.
Yeah.
And so I would not be the least bit surprised to see them really, really push in earnest. Here there was rumor that they took another city in Ukraine over the weekend, and we're really watching some really important infrastructure supply lines along the front line
Yeah.
for Ukraine that Russia is close to. And so, yeah, if we think all of a sudden on a Tuesday we're just going to have a truce at noon, which hell, I don't know, like anything is possible, right? But the likelihood of that happening is relatively
Right.
low. So I wouldn't
Exactly.
hold my
Exactly.
breath that we're solving the war before the third anniversary.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
exactly
it,
that.
I think. Market wise, though, corn it was like, "Meh," and now it's like, wait a minute, let's see if we can break out above 5. Beans are at the lower end of the range. Hopefully, we'll see support hold. We have here so far, and if we can close above 1040 or so, then we'll probably work our way back up towards the higher end of the range. And wheat, Chicago wheat, sitting at a psychologically important $6 level. We'll see how today goes, but yeah, happy Moose Day,
There you
Mun's
go.
Day. Tuesday that feels like a
Oh
Monday.
God. Someone's had too much coffee today, or
Oh,
sweets.
never.
Someone's
Yeah.
having too many sweets.
It's been a nice
Uh,
long break, I guess. 3 days off,
well,
and I don't know what to do with myself.
yeah, well, you made up holidays. Anyway, I'm not jealous. But Angie, thank you so much as always for giving us the rundown. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I know I always say it, but regular listeners, we really do appreciate you tuning in most days or every day, even when there's not a US holiday that's made up. And we will see
Right.
you all, and we will see you all bright and early tomorrow. Have a good one. Take
Have a
care.
good
Bye
one,
bye.
guys. See you tomorrow.